Is that better?
Let's see if I can see the batteries in the front. You should be fine.
Okay. So we see all this drama. With boys, what we're more likely to see is a large gang, like 10 or 11 boys who all know each other and all engage in activities, but there isn't as much intensity of relationships in those friendships. So friendships are one kind of peer relationship, but they're not the only kind of peer relationship. In some ways, the relationships among your enemies and strangers or other people who aren't your friends, again, that's just as important to work out as your relationships, your close and intimate relationships. And by the time children are even preschool age, you already start to see these dominance hierarchies, where some children are more dominant, more on top, and other children are less so. In fact, one of the first people to study this was a guy named Frederick Strayer. And Frederick Strayer was actually an ethologist who had studied wolves. So he spent his time going out to wolf packs and then had created his coding system for which was the alpha wolf and which was the beta wolf, and when did the beta wolves make alliances against the alpha wolf, and how did the alpha wolf impose dominance on the lower-ranking wolves. And basically what happened is he took this into your average, 4-year-old preschool, and he didn't even have to change any of the categories. What he saw was among the 4-year-olds looked exactly like what you saw when you went out, and maybe with a few variations, but it looked an awful lot like what you saw when you went out to see the wolf pack. So there would be 1 or 2 children who would be the kind of dominant children, the alpha children who would get to boss other children around and tell them what they were going to do and to decide what kind of playing they were going to do. And then there were children who were sort of the likable, maybe the more likable, less bossy children, who children liked but weren't on the top, and then there were other children who were sort of picked on, who were lower in the hierarchy. And by the time you get to middle childhood, these peer networks become a really dominant part of children's lives. And they're surprisingly stable. So you can make a kind of map of what the peer network looks like at the beginning of the year, and it'll stay very, very much like that all the way through the end of the year. Yep. Middle childhood is typically sort of 6 to school age, so say 6 to 12. So between the end of preschool and the beginning of adolescence. So already in the preschool period, you start seeing some of these dominance hierarchies, but they really kick in the school age period. And you can see this in the formation of both cliques and social networks in middle childhood and adolescence. So cliques are these groups that children organize for themselves. So that's like this group of 3 or 4 or 5 friends who all spend time together and interact with one another. And as I mentioned before, adolescent girls tend to be more integrated in these small cliques, and adolescent boys tend to have something that looks more like crowds, tend to have this more diverse group of friends. And initially, the friendship groups tend to be very sex segregated. So girls are being friends with girls, and boys are being friends with boys, and you don't want to get boy cooties by going and playing with the boys, or get girl cooties by going and playing with the girls. You do see opposite sex friendships in school age children, but often what happens is that they take place outside of the cliques and crowds. So you'll have opposite sex, even really intense opposite sex friendships, but they tend to be with, say, someone that you know at home rather than be part of the network of the larger network of Facebook. Yep. Right. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because what happens is pretty much spontaneously, really before puberty even, you start seeing this transition from children being very sex segregated to starting to have more and more interactions across sexes. So interestingly, even before children actually reach puberty and become sexual beings, you're starting to make this transition from I just am in these sex segregated groups to now I'm going to try and figure out what it is that's going on with those strange exotic creatures from the other gender. And that's when you get a lot of sniggering and giggling and talking about who likes who and so forth. And again, if you're thinking about peer groups as being a kind of practice for adult life, one of the big things that you have to figure out in adult life is opposite gender relationships and romantic relationships, and this seems to be again sort of giving you a chance to practice that in a safe setting where it isn't going to have consequences. Right. It seems, it would be too quick to say that anything was universal, but this kind of school age sex segregation and then kind of coming together, that's something that you do see across a wide variety of different cultures. So even in, say, hunter-gatherer cultures, sometimes you'll even have, here's the boys' house and here's the girls' house. Here's where the boys are and here's where the girls are. And then gradually you start seeing genders coming together. Now again, it's important to emphasize, in all cultures, you do see relationships, cross-gender relationships and friendships. It's just that they seem to be sort of off to one side rather than being part of the dynamic of the entire social network. Okay, let's take a quick explanation break. So why would peers teach different skills? What would be some of the kinds of skills that you might imagine that peers could teach you that parents couldn't teach you? And vice versa, what are some of the things you could learn from parents that you couldn't learn from peers?